really hope you can hear us. It's, I tell you, 5 minutes ago it was like the sun was shining and everything was nice and sweet. Now it's like we're in the middle of a tornado or a hurricane or something. So hopefully the wind isn't blowing too heavy on the mics and making too much noise. I guess we'll have to see in a few minutes. So anyway, we're in downtown Brooklyn, just near, I don't know what, because I don't know Brooklyn so well.
This is the Brooklyn Library.
This is the Brooklyn Library, public library. And behind us is the shopping mall. Atlantic Center is just around the corner. And Barclay Center also there. Anyway, but we're not here for that. We're here to read the Bhagavatam.
Canto 4, chapter 25, text 8.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 8. All these animals are awaiting your death so that they can avenge the injuries you have afflicted upon them. After you die, they will angrily pierce your body with iron horns.
Lord have mercy.
Narada Muni wanted to draw King Prachini Bahishat's attention to the excesses of killing animals in sacrifices. It is said in the Sastras that by killing animals in a sacrifice, one immediately promotes them to human birth. Similarly, by killing their enemies on a battlefield, the Kshatriyas who fight for a right cause are elevated to the heavenly planets after death. In Manu Samhita, it is stated that it is necessary for a king to execute a murderer so that the murderer will not suffer for his criminal actions in his next life. I did say that would happen, but I was told.
Well,
I think it's just here because no one else is affected. It's like some evil vortex.
Evil vortex. Yahoo!
On the basis of, we're just going to read this one verse. On the basis of such understanding, Narada Muni warns them. Look, all her shopping came out. Narada Muni wanted to, Lord have mercy, he wanted to convince the king that overindulgence in animal sacrifice is risky, because as soon as there is a small discrepancy in the execution of such a sacrifice, a slaughtered animal may not be promoted to a human form of life. Consequently, the person performing sacrifice will be responsible for the death of the animal, just as much as a murderer is responsible for killing another man. When animals are killed in a slaughterhouse, 6 people connected with the killing are responsible for the murder. The person who gives permission for the killing, the person who kills, the person who helps, the person who purchases the meat, the person who cooks the flesh, and the person who eats it. All become entangled in the killing.
What's that?
They all become entangled in the killing.
6 people.
Narada Muni wanted to draw the king's attention to this fact. Thus, animal killing is not encouraged even in a sacrifice. Anyway, I don't know if you heard any of that, because I didn't. But anyway.
Well, it looked like the speaker was going up.
Yeah. Anyway, the point is, in the purport it says that you have to murder someone if they murder someone else. I know you have to kill a murderer, yeah, if they murder someone, because it's the right thing to do. It's interesting because just yesterday, in the news here, in the US, New York, although not in this state. What state was it? I don't remember, but it wasn't in New York. But in America, one man was given a lethal injection just yesterday, and he was given a lethal injection for a murder he was convicted for in 1976. So that's how long he's been on death row, and he's been appealing and this and that, and he ran out basically of all his
options,
jurisdictory options and whatnot. And as far as it wasn't that anyone was, well, anyway, he was appealing it. Anyway, it brought up debates because, the man he died yesterday, he's like 76 years old. He's been in the clink for like 50 years. And they were like, so you wasted tax. On one hand, people were saying you wasted taxpayers' money, time, energy, blah, kept the man alive and blah, 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 all those years. Either you should have just killed him because you put him on death row, or you don't have this, because some people also, it's inhumane, why did you do that, da, 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 da. And the irony, it was a woman that he killed who was married and had young kids, so her widow didn't attend, because you can go and watch, and her kids didn't attend, but they did have family representatives that did go and attend to watch him being put to death for the sake of just witnessing it. And for them it was like closure after 50 years. The kids were like under 10 years old when they last saw their mum, but still that's their mum. But so they carried that, and they're aware he's alive. They didn't know why he was alive and why he kept having these appeals. And for those 50 years there's that fear he may get out on some technicality or this or that, and they don't feel that's justice. So for them, after 50 years it was closure. But it sparked up a lot of debate about, and it's interesting because it's a controversial point, and a lot of people do not, it's considered inhumane in this, but it's interesting because I actually just came across it the first time when I read Prabhupada's books, how it's considered that you should put a murderer to death. Like I also read it, I was reading these books at uni now, and I was like, whoa, that's far out. Why would you do that? Like the fact that I'm reading where it's actually supported. That concept is supported. It was quite a big deal for me, like when I was reading it in Prabhupada's books, like, whoa. And that then, so Prabhupada explains, like here in other places, but it's for the benefit of that person, because you cut that, what he did, okay, clean cut, done, and then get them to whatever evolutionary thing they need to do, as opposed to carrying that on. You got your punishment, you got your just punishment, so you're dealt with.
Well, it probably serves many purposes, but it also benefits him because he got a reaction for something that he did, and therefore karmically he won't have to suffer that reaction in his next life. But it also likely brings closure to the families, and also, the only challenges, and what I was thinking after you said that, was that also it seems recently you hear about people who were in prison for like 30, 40 years, and then they get released because some new DNA evidence proves that they didn't actually do it. And so then you think, well, but imagine like next week they find some new evidence and someone says, well, look at this, and it shows that the guy didn't actually do it. Then the ball's in the other court because they killed a man. He didn't even kill the person. And it's like a whole nother thing. But it is one of those heavily debated things, whether the death sentence is actually humane or required. But this is the thing that most people don't have these debates using ideas of like karma, using ideas of like the spiritual perspective, understanding that the soul carries on, and may experience some suffering afterwards. You know, all of these things, I would say, rarely, if ever, or even in the debate, you know, so like that. Okay, let's read on. Did you read that whole thing? Because there isn't a break anywhere in there.
I read it all.
You did. Okay. So text number 9. In this connection, I wish to narrate an old history connected with the character of a king called Puranjana. Please try to hear me with great attention. So this is the beginning of like several chapters of the story of Puranjana. The great sage Narada Muni turned toward another topic, the history of the king Puranjana. This is nothing but the history of King Prachini-Barhishat. This is told in a different way. In other words, this is an allegorical presentation. The word Puran Jana means one who enjoys in a body. This is clearly explained in the next few chapters. Because a person entangled in material activities wants to hear stories of material activities, Narada Muni turned to the topics of King Puranjana, who is none other than King Prachini-Barhishat. Narada Muni did not directly deprecate the value of performing sacrifices in which animals are sacrificed. Lord Buddha, however, directly rejected all animal sacrifice. Srila Jayadev Goswami has stated, Nindasi yagyavidir aha shruti jatam. The word shruti jatam indicates that in the Vedas, animal sacrifice is recommended. But Lord Buddha directly denied Vedic authority in order to stop animal sacrifice. Consequently, Lord Buddha is not accepted by the followers of the Vedas, because he does not accept the authority of the Vedas. Lord Buddha is depicted as an agnostic or atheist. The great sage Narada cannot decry the authority of the Vedas, but he wanted to indicate to King Prachini-Barhishat that the path of karma kanda is very difficult and very risky. So it's interesting here that what comes up about Lord Buddha and Lord Buddha's position and how he's considered an agnostic or an atheist. He doesn't follow the Vedic teachings. He kind of leads people away from that. Yet he was all about sort of, I guess, a certain level of righteousness in that he didn't want animals to be slaughtered and killed in the name of religiosity, when basically it had come to a point where it was just being done so people could satisfy their tongues. So like that. Anyway, interesting.
Foolish persons accept the difficult path of karma kanda for the sake of sense gratification, and those who are too much attached to sense enjoyment are called mudhas, rascals. It is very difficult for a mudha to understand the ultimate goal of life. In the propagation of the Krishna conscious movement, we actually see that many people are not attracted because they are mudhas, engaged in fruitive activity. It is said, Upadesho he mukhanam prakopayana shantaye. If good instructions are given to a foolish rascal, he simply becomes angry and turns against the instructions instead of taking advantage of them. Because Narada Muni knew this very well, he indirectly instructed the king by giving him the history of his entire life. In order to wear a gold or diamond nose pin or earring, one has to pierce the ear or nose. Such pain endured for the sake of sense gratification is endured on the path of karma kanda, the path of fruitive activity. If one wishes to enjoy something in the future, he has to endure trouble in the present. If one wants to become a millionaire in the future and enjoy his riches, he has to work very hard at the present moment in order to accumulate money. This is karma kandya. Those who are too much attached to such a path undergo the risk anyway. Narada Muni wanted to show King Prachini-Barhishat how one undergoes great troubles and miseries in order to engage in fruitive activity. A person who is very much attached to material activity is called Vishaya. A Vishayi is an enjoyer of Vishaya. which means eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Narada Muni is indirectly indicating through the story of King Puranjan that eating, sleeping, mating, and defending are troublesome and risky. I've got nothing to say because I'll be honest, I'm distracted by the wind.
The mind is more difficult to control than the raging wind, and especially when the wind is raging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it said that there are many kind of foolish rascals out there, and it said he simply becomes angry and turns against the instruction instead of taking advantage of them. So that's often what happens when we have big pride, big false ego. Someone tries to give us good advice or give us some instruction, and we just get angry. Okay, so this is the last paragraph. The words itihasam, history, and puratanam, old, indicate that although a living entity lives within the material body, the history of the living entity within the material body is very old. In this regard, Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur has sung Anadi Karam Pale Padi Babar Nabajale Taribare Na Deki Upaya. Due to my past fruitive activities, I cannot find any way to get out of it. Every living entity is suffering in this material existence from past activities. Therefore, everyone has a very old history. Foolish material scientists have manufactured their own theories of evolution, which are simply concerned with the material body. But actually, this is not the real evolution. The real evolution is the history of the living entity, who is Puranjana, living within the body. Sri Narada Muni will explain this evolutionary theory in a different way for the understanding of sane persons. So yeah, quite a few things here. One is first, as it says at the end, that only someone who is actually sane can understand this. And sanity doesn't just mean not diagnosed as crazy. It means sane, as in like dhira, one who is also steady in mind, one who is grave, one who is not intoxicated by the madness of trying to enjoy the material energy. One who's understood that actually that is not the goal of life. That is a sane person. The story Prabhupada tells about people in an insane asylum. Everyone thinks there's someone else and that they don't belong there, you know? So it's kind of like in prison. But yeah, so first we have to become sane, and then yeah, like that. It's interesting, the real evolution of the history of the living entity is that, yeah, we have to go through these different stages of development and understanding. So, okay, anyway, I think we'll stop here before the camera blows over, and we're just hoping that actually you were able to hear anything that we said. We'll have to check that out. All right, see you guys later. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shout out to Vana Malini, who designed this t-shirt. Looks like I got the one with the stain on it. So she designed it for the Matchless Gifts project. Okay, gonna go. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.